most of you, I'm assuming, since I recognize many of you, are familiar with Citizen Action and the work that they do. But on the off chance that this is your first time hearing about us, we are an organization that is committed to social justice, racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice. And we do that through grassroots means. So we invigorate and activate the community, the people for whom we are working, and we make bold steps in pushing progressive policy, electing progressive candidates, and providing the community with events that they really need, food drives and protests and some of the more exciting things like that as well. This is the 34th annual Phoenix Awards, and the Phoenix Awards get their name from the phoenix, which rises from the ashes. And it's a night to celebrate the unsung heroes that work for justice, but are sometimes unnamed, sometimes behind the scenes. So this is our chance to recognize the people who make the gears turn, but who you might not know yet. So I'm really, really excited and honored to be here tonight with all of you. We have 3 incredible awardees, and you can learn a little bit about them. 2 are individuals, and 1 is a group. So you can learn a little bit more about them in your booklet. Hopefully you picked up a booklet at the front table. So first is an incredible person who does so much for this community. And I'm going to invite up Korin Kirk to introduce Cynthia Kirk.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Glad to see all of the faces. So first I want to start by saying that I did not nominate my mother for this award. It was not me. I did agree to it, but I did not nominate her, okay? So Cynthia was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on February 12th. She is a kind spirit. She believes in making the world a better place and leaving things better than how you found them. And that's something that she raised all of us on. She is a mother, she's a Christian, she's a sister, she's an aunt, she's a friend, and most, I think in her favorite, she's a grandmother as well. So here's some of my family, her family here at these 2 tables in the front. So she grew up in an era of civil rights. She remembered as a child her aunt talking about marching on Washington with MLK. She has memories of JFK and when he was assassinated, and them coming through the city, to kind of honor all of his legacy and what he had done. And it really left a mark on her. And so she decided that she wanted to then give back, right, and make a change. So she started in high school as a candy striper, actually, at Hinman University Hospital. After that, she continued her career in nursing. She joined the National Guard first, and then she eventually went into the Army. I do want to note that she joined the National Guard at a time when women actually weren't allowed in the Army. So she was one of the last class of the WAC, the Women's Army Corps. So just shout out to a little bit of history, that she's been breaking barriers since then, right? So later in 1978, that was abolished, and then she was able to join the U.S. Army as like a full member as a woman. She was in the Army for many years. She raised through the ranks. She eventually became So she gave me these codes, and I was never in the military, so I don't know what it means, but she was a 91 Charlie. I don't know, there might be a handful of folks in here who know what that means. But she eventually became a licensed practical nurse and then a ward master during the Gulf War. While in the Gulf War, she served 10 months over in the Middle East. She was in Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq. And she also did a missions trip to Turkey where her and the unit set up a mobile hospital to help local folks. So that was also a big piece of developing who she was and that giving that she wanted to do and giving back to people, right? After she was no longer active, her and my stepfather retired from the military, and that is how we landed here in Binghamton. So she came here, she went to the D.A.R.O.C School of Nursing to continue her education in becoming a nurse. She became an RN, and she went to D.A.R.C and she also worked at UHS. So at UHS, she worked there until 2020. She actually was able to retire. But during that time, back in 2016, she noticed something around the community. So who's familiar with the City of Binghamton's Youth Summer Program? Right, we've heard of this before. So she was looking around back in 2016, and she didn't like what she saw. She didn't think that the students who were selected to work in those programs and have access to those funds didn't really match with what she saw in the community. So she decided to go and ask a few questions. And from that, she started a partnership with the city and the Broome Tioga NAACP, and she started a program which is now called YEP, Youth Employment Preparation Program. And so the city was saying, oh, well, we don't get these applicants, or when we do get these applications, they are not work ready. So YEP Now, and again, this has been since 2016, YEP Now trains youth, helps them with their applications, does work readiness, and all of that to get them ready to be employed. And since then, the employment rate of marginalized community groups has been increased at the City of Binghamton. And I think in past years, it's been as much as, in past years, it's been as much as like 20 of the 21 applicants, 40%, thank you for my help right here in the front, my sister, 40% increase. And so that was just a little piece, a little something that she does. She loves the BT NAACP. She's been doing this work since 2016, as I said. Over the years, gained more partners, more folks coming in to train the students, more job opportunities. I think I saw Vines here. So partnering with other organizations in the community as well to make sure that these students have an opportunity to access these jobs. So when I was kind of gathering this information about her, I asked her a question and I said, what are you most proud of? And so all of the stuff that she does for economic development, all of the job fairs that she promotes, all of the boards that she is now sitting on to represent, those were not the things that she named. What she named was the park at Roosevelt Elementary School, which is the neighborhood elementary school where we live, was not open to the community. Right, so during the summer, locked up, after school, locked up. And so she had a question, well, why can't the kids access the park, right? So I think it took 3 years, 3 years of her going back and forth, like going to the principal, like, no, this park really needs to be open. Kids need to have access. So actually, this last summer, as of now, because of her efforts and her relentless dedication, I'll say, the park is now open after school a couple of hours and during the summer a couple of hours, so the youth of Binghamton on the north side can access it and play and have somewhere to go. So that's the thing she's most proud of. And I'll also add that because of that, there are also youth jobs associated with that. So she created 2 youth positions to be kind of park managers for that space. So all in all, I just want to say thank you for what you do for BCNACP, for the community, for Binghamton as a whole. We really appreciate you. And I can say that you have made Binghamton a better place. So you definitely lived up to that saying of making a place better than you found it. So thank you so much. Oh, read it. Okay. Yes. So, Citizen Action of New York is pleased to present our 2021 Phoenix Award to Cynthia Kirk, who, with a kind spirit, makes Binghamton a better place by providing our youth of color opportunities for employment, development, and growth. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I want to first say that no man's an island. And as I look around this room, I see plenty of partners, people that I see fighting for civil rights, equity all over the community, at the Bundy Museum, Citizen Action, NAACP, all the different agencies and organizations that I've been associated with. I want to thank my husband because, of course, I couldn't do all this stuff that, takes you out of your house, keeps you from cooking and doing other things that you might otherwise do. So thanks to Micah Barrero. And my children who are very, very supportive and who also help keep me informed about what's happening in schools, what's happening in communities, what's happening with single parents, with the housing shortages and everything like that. So I appreciate all that. And as Korin said, I think we all should be making it a better place. Either you're part of the problem or part of the solution. And so I want to continue to be part of that solution. And I hope that you all will continue to partner with me in that endeavor. Thank you.
Congratulations. I feel like I'm in the presence of royalty. Also, before I introduce the next Phoenix Award recipient, I do want to draw your attention to the dessert table, which is open at your leisure. So please feel free to grab some sweets whenever you are done eating. I believe the buffet is still open, so feel free to grab seconds or thirds if you would like. Now, the next Phoenix Award recipient is someone that I've known for years and will be introduced by somebody that I've known for years. So I'd like to invite Sean Massey up to please introduce Dara Silberstein.
So unsung heroes. Those who know and work with Dara know her to be someone who hates personal recognition, would rather do anything than self-promote, and generally finds this sort of honor kind of embarrassing. So I think it's fair to say that she was a bit resistant to the idea of being presented a Phoenix Award and honored. But those of us who know Dara also know that she's a fierce and hard-working advocate that you can always count on to fight for what is right, who would never compromise what's right, even for what might be politically convenient. So a bit of history. Dara grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens. Her mom was active in the community and local politics. She ran for and served on the local school board. And some of Dara's earliest political memories are of campaigning for local candidates for the state assembly and for George McGovern during the 1972 election year. Dara received her undergraduate degree in political science from Binghamton University and studied law at the State University of New York at Buffalo. After passing the bar, she worked as an attorney with what was then called Broome Legal Assistance Corporation, which today we know as the Legal Aid Society of Mid-New York. She initially practiced disability law in the area of special education, accommodations, and benefits, then worked as a pro bono coordinator helping women in abusive marriages get divorced from their abusers. While working at legal services, she returned to graduate school, earning a PhD from Cornell in industrial and labor relations. She became program director of Binghamton University's Women's Studies program in 1995 and continued in that role, leading that program until she became associate research professor in 2017. Now, I got to know Dara through our work at the university as well as at Citizen Action. In fact, it was Dara who got me into local politics by twisting my arm, convincing me, someone with no political experience at all, to run for a seat on the Binghamton City Council against incumbent Chris Papistrat. We won, more to do with the people who worked hard on that campaign than anything I had to do with it. Dara had been working with the Ryan mayoral administration to push for progressive policies and practices for city residents, including a collaboration between the City of Binghamton, Citizen Action, and the WGSS, the Women's Studies Program, to apply for and implement a neighborhood assembly project funded by AmeriCorps, with the goal of democratizing government by empowering neighborhood assemblies to organize on their own behalf and address issues affecting them at every level, at the local level. Throughout her career at Binghamton University, Dara has empowered students through her teaching and mentorship, maintaining a commitment to social justice and experiential learning as central objectives in her pedagogy. Her course on activism, social justice, and feminism, which started over a decade or almost a decade ago, brings students together to work to identify, develop, and carry out activist projects that affect them and their communities, while learning organizing skills and strategies for social change. These projects have ranged pretty widely, because the students do get to decide what they want to do. This isn't an assignment of a project, but something that emerges from their work. But some of the examples are organizing a successful online forum during the pandemic to address sexual assault and violence on campus, drafting and introducing legislation to Binghamton City Council that would require the city to provide feminine hygiene products free of charge in all the city public bathrooms. After the 2016 election, she and her students worked together in detention centers in New York and Texas to assist with pro bono legal work for migrants. They also traveled to the Tijuana-San Diego border to assist those seeking asylum. And in response to the increasingly vitriolic ways in which Muslims were being targeted in the U.S., she and students from her Queer Critical Legal Theory seminar traveled to Morocco to gain a better understanding of how gender and sexuality manifest in an Islamist country. Dara was also instrumental in founding Binghamton University's Q Center, which has been enormously successful and provides an important resource for LGBTQ+ students and their allies. She's advised student organizations, participated in student-led social justice protests, and has spoken at activist events on campus like Take Back the Night. And her commitment to her students has led many of them to choose careers in as social justice advocates, working as attorneys, social workers, educators, etc. Her commitment to justice extends beyond the campus community as well. In response to the recent crises at the border, Dara used her legal training to assist those seeking asylum in the U.S. by working with legal advocacy organizations, assisting in interviewing and prepping clients for their asylum hearings, and participating in several actions challenging the immigration policies of both the Trump and Biden administrations. She also helped co-author the police modernization bill. Dara served on boards of the Rape and Abuse Crisis, now Crime Victims, Southern Tier AIDS Program, Accord Legal Services, the Binghamton Human Rights Commission, the Binghamton Civil Services Commission, and Citizen Action of New York. And finally, if that wasn't enough, Dara ran as a progressive candidate for Binghamton City Council and Binghamton School Board. Although she didn't win, she was able to use these campaigns to highlight important and often neglected issues facing our community. I'm confident that Dara will continue to be someone we can count on to stand up, speak out, and work hard for justice in our community. So Dara, thank you for all of your work, and congratulations. You gonna say something first? Okay, we get to read it too. All right, I get to read it too. Okay. Citizen Action of New York is pleased to present our 2021 Phoenix Award to Dara Silberstein, a lifelong crusader for justice, expanding the movement through teachings of activism, social justice, and feminism, tirelessly defending the rights of workers, immigrants, women, students, and the LGBTQ community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, I can't speak off the cuff as easily as you do, so forgive me if I'm going to read a bit. Let me start off by saying how incredibly humbled I am to receive this award. It is a huge honor to be among so many of you in this room, especially my co-recipients, who I consider to be giants in their social justice work. I would like to take a moment to thank some very key people in my life. Thank you to my colleague and my good friend, Sean Massey, for his kind introduction. Sean, there are a few people who push me to be better and to do better as you do. From our academic interests to our work on Binghamton's Human Rights Commission and the much-needed police modernization bill, to the Pride and Joy Family Project, my life is truly enriched having you in it, so thank you. I would also like to take a moment to thank my good friends and incredible colleagues, who I hope will forgive the short shrift of mentioning your names without detailing all the ways in which you sustain me. Deborah Elliston, Sandra Hildale, Benita Roth, Monica Sellis, Luke and Pat Day, Joshua Demery, and Bob McCarthy. Thank you so much, really. And Karen Carpenter, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to write your name in the thing. I would also like to express my deep love and gratitude to my family. Hi, guys. My brother Lee, my brother-in-law Stash, my kids Lael and Matthias, and my mom Sybil, who has not only been my best friend, I was hoping I'd get through this, but my shining example of how to lead a just life. Finally, to my dear friend and frequent social justice collaborator, Mary Clark. One of the things I enjoy most is when any group of people, many of us sitting in this room, recount the first time Mary ensnared us in her web of social activism. Fond memories for many of us, at least. Mixed memories for others. All kidding aside, so many of us had our lives enriched by your tireless efforts. Mary Clark, all I can say is thank you. I am old enough to remember what it was like to live in the shadow of the nuclear clock as the minute hand inched closer to midnight, which marked nuclear holocaust. God, those were much simpler times. Currently, we are living in a time that many have described as the beginning of the end of our democratic experiment, when the rule of law is no longer a standard embraced even by the Supreme Court, as demonstrated by the too casual way it has rejected all women's reproductive rights by allowing the Texas anti-abortion law to stand. One of the most difficult results of these challenging times is a reluctance on our side of the political fence to support candidates who challenge our economic and political norms. It is as if we are driven to choose political candidates that are, quote, safe. Candidates who embrace the status quo, or worse, who represent some misguided sense of nostalgia for the good old days, forgetting how the unchallenged positions of race, gender, class, privileges left marginalized groups out of meaningful consideration in terms of public policy. And frankly, when we do get leaders who want to do better, we fail often to support them and to provide them the support that they need. And you know who you are. And in case you didn't know who they were, I am referring specifically to our current Progressive Council members, Aviva and Angela. Sorry, I should have done that the other way. And our former Progressive Council members, obviously, my friend Sean there. Frankly, I have reached a point where the reassurance these status quo candidates allegedly offer is not enough. We must demand better of ourselves. I am reminded of a photo of a German shipyard worker who in 1936 Hamburg stood in a sea of hundreds of his co-workers who were then hireling Nazi leaders. This individual not only refused to salute, but folded his arms in complete disdain of his compatriots, clearly marking his line in the sand, for which he was eventually killed. There are other examples of that kind of courage, the most obvious being Colin Kaepernick, who risked his career simply by kneeling during the national anthem. I am also thinking of the scores of migrants I have encountered at the border who, even knowing how racist and unwelcoming this country is, decided to leave the violence of their home countries, a violence which the U.S. augmented, if not produced, just to have some peace in their lives. But we need more. We need those of us who have enjoyed privileges we have not earned, privileges derived from whiteness or because of gender, of class, able-bodiedness, etc., to defy the norms sustaining those privileges. Those of you who have enjoyed these privileges need to reconcile with the difficult reality that, quote, our democracy has always been built on systemic inequalities like that of racism, sexism, and class. Thank you. It is my hope that this award is in recognition of the very beginning of my efforts to reject these privileges and to work for a system where everyone, irrespective of their identities, enjoys a just and rewarding life. And I just want to say how deeply appreciative I am of sharing this struggle with you all. Thank you.
Congratulations again. What a powerhouse of social justice. By the way, did you all hear me when I said that the dessert table is open? Because the dessert table is open and you can get dessert at the dessert table. Okay, so our last award is for D.A.R.O.C, and I'd like to introduce Aviva Friedman. Hi, I will be introducing D.A.R.O.C. On May 25th, 2020, the world was rattled by the homicide of George Floyd. Protests erupted around the nation, calling for increased police accountability and an end to police brutality. Local groups already engaged in decarceration and police accountability work and abolition work decided it would be best to combine their efforts and form a coalition, thus named Divestment, Accountability, and Reinvestment in Our Community, abbreviated D.A.R.O.C. D.A.R.O.C's name highlights Binghamton and Broome County's overinflated police department budgets, money that would be better spent on community programs to enhance safety and prevent crime in the first place. D.A.R.O.C's focus is on grassroots community engagement, allowing those traditionally marginalized voices to come to the forefront of the conversation to crowdsource solutions. The members of D.A.R.O.C are fierce advocates for defunding the bloated police and jail budgets, demilitarizing the police, and implementing policies to help keep police accountable to the communities they serve. Governor Andrew Cuomo issued Executive Order 203 in June 2020, which required municipalities to develop and implement a police reform and reinvention plan. In direct opposition to the hasty and secretive operations of the mayor's collaborative formulating the plan, D.A.R.O.C organized hundreds of community members in parks across the city to develop a list of community demands, which were delivered to elected officials who would later vote on the collaborative's plan. The list of demands and accompanying letter highlighted the shallow and haphazard nature of the collaborative's plan and invigorated the community to pressure elected officials to make meaningful changes to the police department. Additionally, D.A.R.O.C activists organized events where dozens of community members aired their grievances with both the City of Binghamton and Broome County budgets, citing their disappointment in the amount of money dedicated to the police department and Broome County Jail. Those who spoke offered alternatives where they thought the money would be more useful. D.A.R.O.C's work brought the city and county budget's focus on punishment rather than safety promotion to the forefront of the conversation, garnering wide news coverage. D.A.R.O.C continues to organize in the community, shedding light on the unjust practices perpetuated by our investment in the carceral state. There is hope for a future in which we invest in our communities in a meaningful, safe, and helpful way. Advocates like those in D.A.R.O.C ensure that we will have a future that is safe for children and communities that thrive. Thank you. So I'd like to invite who's accepting on behalf? I know it's a coalition. I'd like to invite Chanel Boyce and Andy Pragacz up to accept the word on behalf of D.A.R.O.C. So I'll read the words if you want. Yeah. Okay. Citizen Action of New York is pleased to Let me try that again. Citizen Action of New York is pleased to present our 2021 Phoenix Award to D.A.R.O.C for ensuring that we divest from harm and reinvest in our community, and for uniting activists in the fight for racial justice, police accountability, and the end to mass incarceration.
Okay. Hi everyone. It's good to see you all here this evening. I don't have a big long speech prepared. However, as I look out here, so many of you were involved in D.A.R.O.C activities last year. Were involved in Black Lives Matter protests. We had a very active summer. How many here were part of a D.A.R.O.C event last year?
I think most of the people here.
Yeah. So I mean, in a very real way, this is obviously not an individual award. This is a collective award. The D.A.R.O.C itself was brought together Citizen Action, brought together Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Justice Union in the Southern Tier, and Truth Farm. As some of the main collaborators and a bunch of community members. There are actually way too many people to name because there was hundreds and hundreds of people that participated in these events. Our aim was to help re-envision what community safety means in our community, and the possibility of our budget. that we didn't need to put more money into police and prisons, that was in fact driving many of the problems that we see and try to address all the time. That the problem and the harm was not coming from individuals, but coming from the structures that we produce. We were charged with trying to protect the members of the public, especially marginalized communities. That's our flash flood alert. From the harm caused by the state. Let me be clear. When we talk about harm, we've talked about harm from drugs. We talk about harm from prisons. We talk about harm from jails, or harm from poverty, or harm from low-income housing, or harm from the medical system. We were talking about harm created by the state. We're talking about harm that can be solved and can be addressed, but at its root, many of our activities were addressed to think about solutions outside of those structures, because those are the structures that are causing harm. And that's actually the work every day. People in this room do the work of protecting people from a callous, racist state. When you are helping someone find housing, work with the DSS, are helping people get food, as so many people in this room do, or working with incarcerated people, people that have substance use disorder, you are doing the work of abolition. That is what abolition is. That's what it looks like. In our counter-revolutionary moment, it's become a bad word. I hear kind of middling Democrats yell about how the defund language hurts their candidacies and things like that. Not talking about the politicians in this room. And that is hogwash. Defunding and abolition simply mean supporting our communities in productive ways that don't involve the type of harm that is produced by police and the jails as they try to protect property, as they try to protect the wealth of some and enforce the impoverishment of others. So when we talk about abolitionism, we're talking about envisioning a future bereft of that, without that, and one that entrusts us, that entrusts the members of the community to support each other and meet those needs without those other interventions. So again, this is really a congratulations to all of you in this room and all the people that came to those events, that were part of them, that stood up in the face of a very unsympathetic and aggressively antagonistic, both at the county legislative level and the mayor's office and the city council. So, thank you for doing that. It's important work. The work continues. And of course, and now in some ways we have even more work to do. But certainly one of the good things that D.A.R.O.C did was we exposed, we forced these folks who try to come out and tout any sort of community value, we've exposed them for exactly what they were. The authoritarians in waiting, the people that don't actually want to listen to the folks in this room. And so that is something that we can credit D.A.R.O.C in that formation, all the people that participated.
I don't think that there's much that I want to add, but I want to say something that particularly the coalition partners of D.A.R.O.C, I think that we're extraordinary at having really difficult conversations and bringing people together of many different backgrounds. On many occasions, we see, city officials, county officials put together town halls or, roundtable conversations, and they say to us all the time, no one ever shows up. But for some reason, all over last summer, we were able to get dozens and hundreds of people to have conversations about what they wanted to see differently happen in their community. So we were able to, hold them accountable for that and say that we know what the issues are and we sure enough do have the solutions. And it's when you invest in the community and you show them that you truly care, we will show up because this is our community and we have the answers. So, as last summer we went through, 9 different counties across the state and, built, coalitions throughout the state. It was an extraordinary time, also an exhausting time, I must add. But it was a testament to what we always talk about as organizers, that, you know, people power. And there was something that was increasingly refreshing about, you know, going from county to county, but also just, you know, hundreds of people in front of the police department, like not only, you know, calling out all the injustice that we have faced, but also dancing in the street, because we do as well, you know, we have to support revolutionary joy, especially in times of darkness. And I'll be remiss if I didn't also, you know, at least extend some kudos to our youth organizers that really came through and, you know, held protests at the jail and organized those speak outs, because they really did a phenomenal job. And we were able to just kind of, you know, stand back and be advisors. And we know that the youth are going to be all right. And that was certainly a moment that we had last summer. And, you know, I am increasingly excited about the work that we are doing, because honestly, this is just the beginning. And a lot of times, you know, the news will cover the huge events that we do. But I would like to say that members of D.A.R.O.C, we do this work day in and day out. We are on the ground, grassroots advocates and organizers, and we need all of you to commit and recommit yourselves daily to the kind of work, because it's going to take the village, the community, to really see the kind of change, and not to, you know, leave this legacy of oppression for our children and grandchildren. So this is also a call to action. So thank you very much. It is such an honor to, you know, receive this award on behalf of D.A.R.O.C, and thank you all very much.
All right, congratulations again. So I'll remind you one more time, there is dessert over there. Before I go, I did want to take a moment to recognize the immense work that the Phoenix Awards Committee put in to put this award ceremony together. Shout out to everybody who did lots of planning and also some scrambling, if I'm going to be honest, but what an amazing evening. So to offer closing remarks, I'd like to introduce, last but certainly not least, the Regional Director of Citizen Action Southern Tier, Mary Clark.
Good evening. This is always my favorite event of the year, because we get to honor so many wonderful people who are in the struggle for justice together. And it makes that journey so much easier when everyone, you know, works together. I think the one person that we'd like to honor tonight, or just remember tonight, who is not with us, is, Larry Parr. So I'd like to just take a moment to remember the wonders of Larry, who has been our board member for probably 20 years, has worked in the struggle for justice, education justice, racial justice, every kind of justice. And he had just this incredible spirit that always kept going, and he always kept us going. And he just passed in September, and our movement will truly miss him. And I'd just like to take a moment of silence for everyone to remember what Larry left each and every one of us. Because I always said, and at his memorial I said, Larry taught each of us something. And I'd like to, as part of his legacy, is for us to remember what he taught us. And so take a moment to remember Larry and what he taught us. And that way, his memory can live on and his legacy lives on. So I ask each of us to do that. Thank you. I'd like to also, commend and recognize some of the wonderful people who have been in the struggle a long time and has helped to build citizen action in our organization. And I'd like to just recognize our current and past board members who are here. Korin, Kirk, our board chair, who has been our leader and wonderful leader over the years. Aviva Friedman, Sean Massey, Janelle Boyce, Chris Berger, Joanne Dillon, Monica Silas, Susan Lee, and Robin Drayton. I'd also like to really recognize a wonderful new staff member who has joined us in April to really lead us into the future. She really has the vision and just a whole sense of where we need to be going as we move forward with citizen action. Solka Valerio, she is like an outstanding partner and a visionary, and really has a really pulse on where we need to be going in the future. So I thank you, and it's wonderful to be with you. I'd like to recognize Rosemary Rivera, our state co-executive director, who came down from Albany to join us, and thank you so much. We deeply appreciate your leadership as we move forward with citizen action. And did you name the Phoenix Committee? Yeah. I'd just like to recognize some of the folks who are here, because this was a hard time. We kept postponing, we canceled last year, we went. It was just tremendous work, and it was, I apologize, very disorganized. And but people really came together in the end and really pulled this off to have this lovely evening. I'd like to recognize Maddie Irvin, Diane Hunter, Aviva Friedman, and then our wonderful partners in Albany who are running all the technical stuff, Dana Wilbanks and Andrew Tarwalder, who really pulled it all together for us. So I just think it's important to thank people, and that's what tonight is really about, is to thank people who are really fighting for justice in there. Cynthia, I just think you're the most remarkable person. You're always behind the scenes, just doing things. You are truly an unsung hero. No one sees you, but all of a sudden, all of this stuff happens, which is so incredible. And then, in addition to that, you have bred a whole new generation of activists, because you should be so proud of the work that your children do. I don't know what we do without Korin and her vision and just really keeping us together at Citizen Action. And Ebony, I work closely with on a whole series of different issues. So I think you not only contribute to that behind the scenes work, but you also nurture and grow a whole group of activists who will continue your legacy. And I can't thank you enough for that, because that's what we have to do, is really grow new and diligent workers to fight for justice, and thank you for that. Dara, one of my dearest friends. I've known Dara probably about 10, 15 years. Seems like forever. But I remember when I first met Dara, I'm like, who is she? It was on a political campaign. She'd jump in and say, I'm like, she's an interesting person. But Dara always keeps everything real. You keep us very on track, and you don't suffer fools lightly. You don't allow, like, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, maybe that person's okay. You're like, no, we need to push this person farther, particularly in the political world. But all the time you have a real compass for justice, and you know where it needs to go, and it never wavers. The rest of us sometimes get lost, but you always bring us back to what's real and what we should be fighting for, and you never are mistaken. And you push us all to be better people. And I thank you for that. And D.A.R.O.C, it's been such a pleasure. I never liked our name. Other than that, the power of when Citizen Action just started to do kind of justice work, looking into the justice system, and what a odd thing to call it, because it's so far from justice. And then I met organizations like Just, like Truth Farm, worked many years with Plot and DSA and NAACP. It was so nice to be working in a community of people who were fighting for justice. We all had kind of a different angle on it, and mass incarceration, deal with the substance use, craziness that's out there. And each of you all taught me, and I think our community so much, a different way to look at reimagining and truly reimagining what a justice system really should look like. And that we don't need to be investing. And there is nothing wrong with the word abolition. Years back, it used to be a good thing. And all of a sudden, the tides have turned. But the beauty of working in coalition, because in other communities, you see all this infighting of groups, and they don't like each other, and one group isn't good enough. It's like we all have our lane, and we all have our role, but we all share the same quest. And it's really to end mass incarceration, to do away with jails, to do away with police. We can imagine public safety in a whole different way. And people are like, oh, you're bad and evil to think that. And we have been called hate groups and all sorts of things. But the real reality is that we can, if we reimagine what the world can look like, that's what justice is. And we need to continue to fight for it. And I love the camaraderie and love the people who are in this quest, who don't back down and aren't afraid to be, criticized or poo-pooed, because in a long run, we are right. And they know that we're right, and they just need to open their eyes and reimagine. So it's been a pleasure working with groups, and it's such wonderful, community to really kind of support each other through the struggle, because it's a hard one. And as Chanel said, we need to continue, because it's just the beginning. And it's really such a wonderful, thing to, I've lost my quote. I have to always end with my quote. It went away. But, excuse me for 1 minute. It's just been a pleasure being part of this organization for all the years and to have everyone here who are, working together. And I usually end with my Robert Kennedy quote, but it went away on my computer, so. But basically, we all know what it is. It's about, the ripple, fighting for justice. And that, a pebble starts a wave, starts a little ripple, then starts a wave. And that's what this is about. We all have to be that ripple, that we can, form that wave to move forward and really, move forward and conquer and really work and achieve justice. It's a long haul, but I think we're all up for it. And the wonderful recipients tonight, it just shows that together we can do it, and we need to do it as a community, and it's wonderful to be with everyone here tonight. And I thank you all I think everyone in this room is part of, our crusade, and I thank you for that, and it's a pleasure to work with everyone and to continue to fight for justice. So thank you very much. And thank you for coming. Oh, and I'm kind of feeling the sense of Larry. Larry would always say, never leave a room without inviting people to become a member of Citizen Action. So Larry was always like, you didn't ask for membership. So in Larry's memory, I ask you and invite you all to become a member of Citizen Action. And there are cards on the table, and I encourage you to do that and would love you to join us. Thank you so much, and have a great evening, and thank you for all you do.
Give me a count report.